morning, and it's a beautiful morning again in New York City. We're going to reach 70 degrees today, and that's magnificent. It's kind of hard when you're living to just live and enjoy life to also think about what's happening in our world. But reality is reality. And if we want to live in this world and enjoy it, we've got to be aware of what's happening. It's kind of like that movie, science fiction, called Don't Look Up. It's a parody about life in America. It's not funny. Scientists are convinced that a meteor is going to strike the Earth, and when it does, the Earth is going to break apart. They're 100% sure that this is going to happen. They get on the media. They talk about the problem. They get to the President of the United States. They try to convince her to believe in what they believe in, to make preparations. Preparations she makes. Not for we the people. You got to watch the movie to see what happens to us. But her pals in the industrial government military complex, she and her pals, not even her kid, gets out. And it's kind of interesting what happens to them. So if you haven't seen Don't Look Up, I absolutely recommend it. It's funny and it's serious. Very, very serious. Kind of like climate change. It's happening. It's happening on a global level. Finally, all over the world, whether it's in the Arctic, in Sweden, in Brazil, the indigenous people are rising up and letting their voices be heard. They no longer want deforestation and mining and logging in their communities. They want to preserve the earth. And all of their voices are going against the powerful lobbies all over the globe. Big oil, Exxon and Chevron, who knew back in the 80s, actually probably before then, that the globe was going to warm with dire consequences for us and the planet. What did they do in response? Well, they were working on renewable energies. They were working on lithium batteries. They were working on solar. They were working on different nuclear energy alternatives. And what did they do? They said, it'll be too expensive to develop. We'll just let go of all the sciences, all the scientists, and we'll promote oil. So what if it's a disaster for all of us? Perhaps they thought, like in Don't Look Up, they'd have an exit plan by then. I'm sure they're trying. But they don't seem to realize is, so far, we haven't found that much intelligent life on Earth. Do we think we're going to find it in the outer planets? And do we think we'll be able to live in those atmospheres? I'm not so sure. If it were up to me, I'd go into the War Production Act right now, and I'd start working on renewables. Not wind energy so much, but solar. We barely use solar energy in this country. Imagine if we shielded our crops and our vineyards from the intense heat of the sun during those hours when it's most intense. And then we use that collected energy and sold it back to the electric grid. One, we wouldn't have higher content wines, and B, we'd be able to pick our produce in safety with shade. It's a win-win for society. At 10% solar in this country, that's an idea that could grow and is certainly more than competitive with big oil and fossil fuels. We could also redesign nuclear energy power plants, not refurbish what we've got. That's a fool's errand and a waste of money. What we need are new plants using thorium or natrium salts, not the old Chernobyl style, which most of us have, and most of our plants are also situated on fault lines. We don't need that at all. This is a country that can afford to develop more. We can develop products and we can develop people, but we can't do it based on the society that we're now living in, which is unabated capitalism. Capitalism with a capital C that only sees profits and doesn't see people. Doesn't have to be like that. From 1914 to 1980, we had a thriving country, a country that was learning, becoming educated, was looking into affordable health care, and was trying to do the right thing for all people. Not now at all. Now we've become number one in the world, the Western world, for inequality. And what do you get with inequality? We get inflation. Sure, Powell can increase interest rates 0.5%, and that'll send a shock market through the economy, and if we're lucky, we'll avert recession. But there's something far easier we can do to get rid of inflation in this country. We can pass a minimum wage of $15 an hour across the board for all people in America, and that will lessen the impact of inflation. We can increase the enforcement of antitrust laws because we know that inflation didn't start with the war in Ukraine. It started before then with the supply chain as the excuse. Meanwhile, corporations are making record profits that they've never made before, and they're passing on whatever costs they have, irrespective of their enormous profits, to we the people. No need for us to suffer. The government wants $1 trillion? Easy. Put some money into the IRS and upgrade their IT systems and give them the enforcement personnel that they need. They'll reclaim $1 trillion in taxes lost on a yearly basis. We don't have to wait 10 years to have the money for infrastructure. We'd have it now, and we'd be able to give people the child care and the pre-K that they need. Why is the GOP, like DeSantis and Greg Abbott, against books? Well, in Florida in particular, the New York Times did a study on the 21 math books that were banned in Florida. And they got a theme all right. And this theme is self-awareness, self-determination, and cooperation and civil discourse. My God, those are topics you really want to ban. Because what would it mean for DeSantis's society? It would mean that he would be producing children who would eventually become adults, who would understand why they are doing something, and would cooperate with others to develop solutions. So much better to have the dictatorship of Ron DeSantis. Why have anyone questioning what they're doing? Perhaps they'll find out that his plan isn't the right plan because they will think about what's good for me and they will understand themselves. My goodness, it's taken me all these years to have self-awareness. If somebody taught me how to do that when I was 8, 10 years old, it would have saved me a lot of grief. And it can save those children who will become adults a lot of grief and let them be so much more productive in society. To me, what he's done is he's banning thinking, and that's not a good thing. Greg Abbott's books, I haven't looked at them, but I imagine it's the same principle. Don't use boogeyman terms to describe what you're doing. What you're doing is you're inhibiting the American people from becoming informed citizens so that they can vote for people who support them and support them all the time, not the industrial government military complex that we've produced. I don't want to have to save our lives in the 11th hour, but looks like that's what we're going to be doing. Ah, and one more thing about Ukraine. As many of us stay here in America untouched by the fears and wars in Europe. What's happening is really a clash of civilizations, democracy versus autocracy. And based on our record, I can understand why Putin miscalculated. After all, in 2016, Trump watered down the language for the RNC platform on Ukraine and said we'd come to their aid, but it was kind of iffy. And in the process, he was being promised by Putin land in Crimea to build and land in Moscow to build, just like he had built in the Ukraine and in Georgia. So it's a little disingenuous on the part of the GOP to say now that we should be doing more, though I quite agree we should be doing more for Ukraine. Anything Zelensky wants, we should be giving him to fight Putin. Anything, because I don't want Ukraine to fall. And if it means that we have to diplomatically talk to Putin, well, by golly, that's what it takes. On the one hand, you make him a pariah. On the other hand, we all sit down and find a way to work towards peace. No sense letting the entire globe suffer for Putin's miscalculations and Putin's imperialistic tendencies. This is not a time for imperialism. This is a time for the globe to come together on global issues and solve our COVID crisis once and for all and our climate crises once and for all. It's taking a terrible toll on people. The pollution is killing us. The toxicity that we manufacture is killing us. The leaks that we have all over in methane and carbon is killing us. It's time for us to settle down, look at reality, solve our problems, and enjoy our lives because we've done a job well and we've secured our future and the future of our children and our grandchildren. God bless you all, and thank you for listening. That's the news, folks. Do with it what you wish, but act. Act on your own behalf and for the rest of us to preserve democracy. Thank you.